Hello and welcome to Not One Right Way, the podcast. It's me, Melissa Manuel, she, her, and we're back again to talk more about the entertainment industry. Marv, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I am excited for Halloween. We're recording this right before Halloween. I'm curious, what are you watching?
Ooh, okay. Second season of a show called Gyeongsung Creature.
Okay.
I love a good creature show. Um, yeah,
Is this
very,
another
very
anime?
fitting. No, it's not another anime.
Okay.
No, it's a
Creatures on brand for Halloween.
yeah, it's a Korean historical drama.
Also good.
Yeah, my mom refers to them as K-scaries instead of K-dramas.
Good. Case scaries.
Yeah.
I love that. Very soft. I just finished the Clone Wars last night, and I really want to talk about it so bad. This isn't the space for it, but I do want to say it was really good. And I don't even know how many years late on the Clone Wars train, but it's the perfect show, and I'm really emotional about it. And CGCG, the production studio that worked on it, is my favorite. I'm a CGCG fan for life. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Clone Wars yet. Maybe another time. Here, we're here today to talk with an amazing person. Their name is Ella. They're an animator, an actress, a story artist, a cartoonist, a writer, a singer-songwriter, a podcaster, a comedian, coming all the way from Philadelphia. Welcome, Ella.
Hello. That was a long flight that I made in person to be here.
Yeah,
In simultaneously New Mexico and California.
I
Um,
Yeah.
know.
I'm Ella Cesari, she, her, and I am all of those things that you listed. All those adjectives and nouns.
Welcome. I know you're a professional
Having
podcaster. So this must be a breeze in the park to come on a little one like this one. But we're excited to chat with
it's
you.
always, I don't know. I'm excited by podcasts as a format, so it's always like, I don't know, they're all equally exciting to me anytime I get to just talk with cool people, except now it gets recorded and other people get to listen to the conversation. That's awesome. Like, that's really exciting to me.
Yeah. So thank you for coming. And Marv, why don't you welcome Ellen to the space?
Yeah.
Give her a cup of coffee or tea.
Ooh, yeah, tea
Coffee,
would be great.
tea, snacks. I know I was just eating
Yeah,
some
snacks, yeah.
chocolate-covered rice crackers.
I know
Um,
that makes great podcast content, is chewing
Yeah,
directly into the microphone.
bag of
Yep,
chips.
So I'll take
yeah,
I'll take the noisiest snacks you got.
okay. So as I mentioned a little earlier, I'm a social worker. We really drive straight into the trauma. So I'm curious,
Yeah. Okay, so
what's
when
your
I was 5, it all really started back when I would pinpoint it back to that. Yeah, sorry, what was your actual?
what is your favorite mixed drink?
So I don't drink. I have never tried. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that I would enjoy. But I do love a good mocktail. I do love a good virgin pina colada is usually like a go-to. It is very gentle because I think just with alcohol it isn't even so much like the like risk factor, but just the fact that like I have such a sensitive like palate that like I'd just be like, burn my mouth, like don't like it. Like
Yeah.
Yeah. I think with mixed drink, a good point of to talk about is like I don't always picture with alcohol being in play. I like a mixed drink that's like I really love juice, I could be like Glenn Sturgis in the TV show Superstore, where I have to be medically told to not drink juice anymore because I'm dying. So I love a good
Okay.
mixed juice.
It's
Like
yeah, that's true. If we're being very literal with the definition of mixed drink, I like that.
like fresh herbs with a raspberry lemonade.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Delicious.
Ooh, yeah.
A chocolate milk, that's a mixed drink.
True.
Yeah.
Hot
Beautiful
chocolate.
answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hot chocolate's a mixed drink. It's that time of year soon.
Thoughts on pumpkin spice lattes?
Very, very neutral, I would say. I say let them have their fun. Um,
That's fair. Do you have a favorite appetizer? Favorite snack?
favorite appetizer, favorite snack. I would say this is definitely in line with bring me your noisiest snack, but I love taking this is very like seen in Ratatouille when he's got the two different flavors and he puts them both in his mouth at the same time because I just take like a little bit of a Hershey bar and a little pretzel rod, a little pretzel stick, and I just go and I get the sweet
Ooh,
and the salty all together, and that's perfect right there.
that's delicious.
And I love that you related it to Ratatouille.
To animation, yeah.
Yeah.
Showing my hand so early on this animation podcast.
Marv and I love Ratatouille.
Yes.
Oh, it's great.
She is the Remy to my Emile because I will eat garbage. It's fine
Yeah.
with me.
Marv once told me that food doesn't need to taste good, and I
It's,
think about that all the
well,
time.
well,
Yeah. So Melissa's the one that's like a little herb with raspberry lemonade, and I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever put like salt in your water and just sort of drank it for fun? It
Have you
works.
ever seen a Gretzko, Ella? Have you ever seen a Gretzko on Netflix?
Yes, I watched, I think, the first season.
Yeah, I think it's in the first season where she goes into the break room and eats bread crusts with mayo. Marv
Mhm.
was like, "That's peak snacking," and I was like, "Marv, that's the saddest thing you've ever said to me. That's
I
not
mean,
a
I get it.
meal."
I get it.
Mm.
Yeah.
So that's Marv's level of like fine
Yeah.
dining.
We're gonna have to cut this out. I don't want people to think I've never had good food in my
My
life.
secret shame. No one can know about the breadcrumbs and mayo.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up, Ella?
Here, not here, but in Northeast Philly, which was very like suburb-esque. It's very technically part of the city of Philadelphia, but it is really not very city-like at all. And, you know, now I live in the actual city, but for a while I grew up in this, to be blunt, a more boring area. Um,
Would you call it the suburbs?
yeah, I would call it I would call it suburban.
Yeah, I grew up in the suburbs. It was not very exciting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it wasn't like the hardcore suburbs. Like we had sidewalks and streetlights. There's some suburbs where you don't even have those, and and those are like waking nightmares for me.
Yeah,
Is it the sidewalks or is it the street lights for you that are
Well, no,
necessary?
I mean, probably both, because I like to be able to walk around, and I also like to be able to walk around without the sun necessarily being out. Yeah, I would love to walk around my neighborhood and not have to like look if there's a car coming like the whole time. Just like hug the shoulder of the road.
Yeah.
valid.
I will tell you right now, you would hate Denver. No sidewalks. No sidewalks. They're like this big, they're all broken up.
And
The
then,
worst
yeah,
place
because I
ever.
mean, and this does in that sort of tangential way circle to animation industry, but it's like I never because I went to college in at School of Visual Arts SVA in New York City, and I knew that at a early enough age in like teenhood where I was like, well, I don't need to learn to drive. I mean, I'm gonna I'm gonna be living in the city, and then I'm probably gonna keep living in a city. And there's the idea that like you work in animation, you quote unquote need to live in LA, and then if you do live in LA, yeah, you do need to drive. Unfortunately, I feel like, but yeah, you just for the listeners, Melissa has given a thumbs down, a visual thumbs down to
Right.
the fact that you need to
Driving.
drive to live in LA. Yeah, but then I figured, there was no need to try to work that in amidst like just trying to keep my head above water for high school, trying to do all that. But then, I went to New York City for SVA, and that was in 2017. And then in 2020, this really weird thing happened, and everybody had to go home. And then I was back in the suburbs of Philadelphia, with no ability to drive. So, not that there was anywhere to go, for some weird reason, but
Some weird reason.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So, a walkable city is your dream. Good sidewalks, good street
yes,
light.
walkable city is my dream, which is probably also why I'm such a Disney park adult, because those are just the most walkable cities. Um,
Yeah.
Maybe that's why there's such a magical place in our mind, but it's not
yeah,
because of the rides or any of that, it's that they're like little walkable cities.
that's definitely a big part of it, I would say. And that's the one thing where I'm like, but if I lived in LA, Anaheim, right there, like,
That's fair. Yeah. I live in Pasadena, and it's pretty close to a walkable city as it can get
yeah,
right now. I can
really,
walk
okay,
to at least 4 grocery stores,
nice.
most of my doctors. I feel like I'm bragging, but
You are. You
Go on, go on.
I'm living a walkable life right now, and I do have
Nice.
my license. I got it pretty late in life. Like, I got it when I was 22, post college,
Mhm.
because I hate the idea of driving mostly out of fear of hurting someone. That's where the fear came from,
I mean, that puts you above so many other drivers, though.
I guess. But it
Like,
put me at a detriment for so many things.
yeah, I feel like I would like to learn how to drive, but I would never want to be in a situation where I had to own a car because that just sounds miserable. That sounds like having a child with none of the rewarding aspects.
Yeah. I still don't own a car, though.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be SpongeBob. I'm gonna perpetually not have my driver's license.
reasonable. As a car owner, I would say it is like having a baby. Like, you got the appointments, you gotta make sure it goes to school, and by that I
Yes,
mean, like, passing the little, what is it? Emissions test
inspection.
every year? Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
That's
like,
crazy.
I love my
I keep
car.
it from throwing up all the time.
Yeah.
Oh,
If she gets sick, I get sick, yeah.
Yeah,
you're only as happy as your saddest kid or something?
yeah.
I have never heard that. That's awful.
Fair enough. Ella, why don't you tell us, what was your dream job when you were younger?
This may come as a surprise. My dream job was animation. Um, and it came from, a lot of sources at the time because, I feel like every kid in some capacity draws. It's encouraged, but I guess for a lot of people that's like beaten out of them or it's just not fostered. But I think for me, I'm thankful that it was. But on top of that, what I really can trace it back to is that I mean, this is a very like specific example, but there was a Christmas or a Hanukkah or a birthday or something where my mom got me this 3-pack of VHSs and it was Toy Story, A Bug's Life, and Toy Story 2, and they were the first 3 Pixar movies all bundled together. And so I would watch those, and I think and I remember specifically, because of a lot of the Sid's toys in the first Toy Story, I avoided that one, and I watched the heck out of Toy Story 2 specifically, which is this very interesting, like, lack of context that I did not need as a child. But then that got me into, like, when the DVDs came out, I would get those, and those specifically had all of the special features and the behind the scenes, documentaries and stuff, and that really shows how these things are made and how, like, it clicked that, oh, like, this is a job that, like, regular people do. Like, the movies don't just appear like magic. Like, people make them and they get paid to make them, and that's a job that they can do just like my dad's job or my mom's job. Um, and then that's what I decided. I was like, I guess I'm gonna do that. Um, and in hindsight, um, I didn't really develop what you would call a fallback. And I didn't But I can also kind of be grateful that I was never pressured to, because I think that's something that a lot of kids who grow up wanting to do animation, that's something that's like a hurdle they have to face, where they get the relatives who are like, "Well, what are you really gonna do, though?" And I never got that. I only ever got like, "Oh, I can't wait to see your name in the credits of something," like, which is y I something I can be very grateful for, I think. And I didn't necessarily think of it in that light until recently, because I think it was more of like "Oh, I wish I'd grumble, grumble, wish I'd been encouraged to do something more practical," but then I kinda don't. I think I'm glad that it was, nourished, in me.
That's really sweet.
Yeah,
It's interesting to hear that this is something you always knew you wanted to do and was drawn to, because
yeah,
I've talked to a few people that this was not something they knew they wanted to do right away. So it's nice to know that you were always drawn to this medium and knew that you
pun
had a
intended, I
passion.
hope.
Hey, I didn't, not intended, but now it is. So that's really magical in a sense
Yeah,
of like
yeah,
it was always meant to be.
yeah.
How did you go about like trying to pursue it and being like, okay, now I know that I want to do this. How do I go about making it real
I mean, it was a
and
lot of trial
actively
and
still doing
error.
it?
Yeah, from very young, it was a lot of trial and error, like, I feel like I would read a lot of these books. In fact, there's a specific book that I got that was, like, all about, like, I have it. It's called Animating the Looney Tunes Way, and it was all about what it sounds like. It would go you through the process of animation, specifically using the Looney Tunes as an example. Um, and I would read it, and I would, like, on the surface understand it, but it didn't necessarily click of like, "Okay, but, like, well, how can I, a seven-year-old, do this? A seven-year-old with, like, Windows XP on the family computer, like, I don't really know, like, what am I what are my resources here?" Like, so I kinda just used what I had. I remember, like, my earliest stuff was just, like, I would take giant stack of paper and do what were basically what we would call, like, storyboards, or, like, just big thumbnail boards, and I would set them all up in front of my father's, like, camcorder, and that would be on the table, and I would be behind the stack of papers, and I would just lift them up one at a time, almost like a very slow flip book, if you can imagine, and I would sort of just, talk as the characters, like you were giving, like, a board pitch or something. But, of course, I didn't really have the words to verbalize it at the time, but I saw what they did in, like, those Pixar DVDs and stuff. I was like, "Okay, I can do something like that." Um, and I would do that, and it was, I believe my like, seven-year-old mind coined Stanimation, which was stood for slightly animated, but that doesn't make sense because where's the T come in? But
Or fun.
I'm not gonna criticize, a child, especially myself as a child. But no, they were very, like, they were fun, and they were, like, good experiences to get, and yeah, it was just this pure, like, I don't know, I wanna make something, but I don't really I for lack of anything else, I guess I'll do this, and just show it to, like, my family and stuff, and that was just my audience. Yeah, because again, like, part of growing up, like, not only was it, like, isolated, like, geographically and, like, the not driving thing, but also just there weren't really that many other kids, like, on my street or, like, kids that I knew that I went to school kinda lived far, so it was just, like, social, like, interaction for a long time was very, like, fleeting, which is maybe in, like, a Freudian way, like, what kind of attracted me to the movies and the animation is just, like, there's an energy of, like, other people there that you can feel. It's a cure for loneliness, I guess, is what I'm really trying to get at. Yeah, and so that was how I did it for a while, and then I got more, like, involved in, the tech side, like, I got more computer savvy as I grew up, but I mean, I am of, like, that brief generation that, like, had computer classes in school. I feel like they probably don't do those anymore, but that definitely helped, like, I understood, like, from a young age, like, how files work and, like, how, like, Windows Movie Maker was, like, one of my early, like, things I would mess around with and, like, video editing. And then I went, there was a summer camp I went to where I would do, stick figure animations in Pivot, if that rings a bell at all to either you or people listening. I would do those animations and those were actual that was frame by frame animating. That was, like, effectively stop motion animating, digitally. So that definitely got me, like, into that sphere, whereas, like, previously I'd just sort of been doing, again, what we in our adult terminology would call, like, storyboarding, but for as a kid, I was just like, "I'm drawing the movie." Like, like but yeah, and then I start to kinda combine those. I do, like, things with once I wrap my head around how the printer scanner works, I can scan my drawings and, time them out in Windows Movie Maker, which was definitely a big step as well. And then I get my first drawing tablet was, like, this little Wacom, like, bamboo tablet, and I start futzing around with that, and that's, like, start of high school that I start doing that, and those are definitely more, you know, recognizable, animatics that we could say were my little short films of that time. But it still kinda felt like, I don't know, I wasn't not that I wasn't taking it seriously, but that there were certain, like, fundamentals that I didn't really have, that I had been kind of, like, stumbling around in the dark and finding my own way through it, and I didn't really not that I didn't buckle down, but that I didn't have the opportunity to buckle down until I went to animation college, because that's where else like, I went to an arts-focused high school, and it was visual arts, but it was very broad. It was more fine arts, and I took 1 year was like media arts, which was like photography and film, which honestly probably contributed more to my animation just in terms of like understanding like the psychology of a frame. Um, than the fine arts did, but still there was a lot of like I said, just sort of fundamental like technical skills that I didn't really have, and that I knew that I needed as well. So like when I would go to these like portfolio days, like trying to get noticed by these colleges, I'd be like, yeah, yeah, well, I'm looking for, the format. And, that's kind of what I would hear and also what I would say to sort of sell myself is like, look, like, you know, I understand like I've got the thing that you can't necessarily, like, train, so I just need the stuff that you can train. Um, you know?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. I
Yeah,
Your journey definitely goes far because you knew this is something you loved from a young age.
yeah, and it's just sort of it's the kinda thing where even if I, like, go a while without, animating or even without drawing, I know I can always, like, return to it and bring something new to it. Because also, this is definitely more of a recent, like, revelation, like, during college or even post-college that, like and it's also something I've alluded to in, which you might have seen when, like, searching me, but I did a video for SVA that I think it's called, like, Life at SVA with the little at symbol, and it's just me talking about, like, my portfolio and also, like, my experience at school, filmed in my bedroom because COVID, But there's the gist of the video is just like, you know, talking about what I've taken away from the school experience, and I chose to, you know, talk about a lot of points that I think I'm going to end up parroting, which is like, which is that there's, you know, equal parts to making art is making the art, but then also like living life and like just like being a person is just as important. I feel like I would grow up trying to like define myself as an artist first, and that would kind of not get me anywhere because I didn't have anything to pull from. And then when I started saying like I'm a person who is an artist, I would have these like more nuanced, like deeper experiences of the world, including like stuff with gender that would inform and like deepen and enrich my art in ways that it wouldn't have if I was just like, all right, I'm sitting down, I'm gonna make art. And then like stuff would happen, but it wouldn't be like
That's deep.
it wouldn't thrill me. Yeah, it wouldn't be as deep and it wouldn't be as thrilling or exciting or interesting or as fun for me. Um
Yeah.
yeah.
Going back a little bit, something you said that I really loved and resonated with was this sort of art and creating as a cure for loneliness, which is like
Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful phrasing.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if there's like a story that sticks with you that really felt like this is a cure for loneliness. This is how society and love and life work, and that's just sort of stayed with you. One that
Like,
you created.
is there an, like, a piece of animation that tells me that?
Yeah, and I'm thinking specifically about work that you've done. Like, is there any
Oh, okay.
story that you've created like that?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I mean, we can definitely easily tie that into, like, the experience of, COVID school, because I made so, in my time at SVA, I made a film a year, which I think is typically the experience. I know the animation department, it continues to evolve in ways that really impress me. I really am like every time I revisit it, like I went for a reunion a year or two ago, and I was like, wow, like I knew like it was changing even as I was there, and I was very impressed with it. But it blew my mind, like all the ways it's evolved. But that's more that's besides the point. That every year I do a film, and then halfway through junior year is when we all have to go back home, and that's the entirety, almost the entirety of my junior year film that I'm like producing at home, or rather the like latter half of the production that I'm doing at home, which is like the bulk of the animation. But that gets done, and then it's the fourth year at SVA for animation students, at least in my time. I assume this hasn't changed, is your thesis year, which is like all your energy, like it's an entire year project that is your film, like your graduation requirement, essentially. And that was done 100%, like start to finish. Like the the earliest like egg of the idea was laid in my dorm, like in New York, but like pre-COVID. But everything after that, like that was incubated and hatched and taught to fly in my house. But not only that, like in my like childhood bedroom, like in like the house that I
Mhm.
grew up in. And it's just this intensely like surreal, potentially
Is this
isolating experience to do this. Like this is my senior year, graduating, like going into the industry I've wanted to do since I was a kid, in this same room since I was a kid here. Like weird. And like just feeling like for as much progress as I was making, it was like nothing's changing. I'm in the same physical place. It's so weird. And we'll get into more of it later. But like my initial industry jobs out of college were also like virtual. Like it was also from that childhood bedroom. I'm like, this is such a strange juxtaposition. But yeah, it was. It didn't feel like work though, because everything else was in the world was so miserable that like working on the animation, working on the film, like it was a cure for that. It was like, "Oh, I'm excited to, like, dive into this." And it was, I'm not gonna say it was, like, a good thing overall because it was obviously a terrible, like, thing that happened globally speaking, but, you know, eh, I could see a reality where I was in school in person for it, and it felt like a grind, because there were so many more fun, interesting things to do in the outside world. I'm like, "Oh, I gotta work on my film." But now it's like, "Oh, wow. I get to stop doom scrolling and work on my film." Like, it's great. It was a nice thing. And my senior year film, it's called Slam Poet. It's about a woman who is a spoken word poet, but also moonlights as a pro wrestler. And one night, she double books. She has to do this two things in one night. Classic gag. And then I use it to, say something about identity. There's a lot of gender stuff interwoven into that, and it's a very personal, but also like I tried to also make it very fun, and I love playing with that duality of, like, something that's very on the surface, like, silly and ridiculous, and it is silly, and I embrace that, but I also want to talk about, finding deeper emotions in something that is ostensibly silly is something that I really love doing, like, to really, present you with a wacky cartoon character and then kinda get into, like, well, what's that like, because I feel like that's, uh, as, someone who is of, like, a marginalized, like, identity, I feel like there's this drive of, like, people don't always take your experiences seriously, and then to sort of present you with a character that you might not take seriously and then speak to their emotional truth, I think is, can be, an empathy experience, I guess, and that's, tying into the cure for loneliness is, like, that made me feel like I had some sort of control over a situation that was very, out of anyone's, direct control.
I really liked Slam Poet. It was
Me
good.
too.
Oh, thank you so
Me
much.
too.
It's
Um,
really special to me.
yeah, and I can see all the love you put into it, and the poetry was phenomenal. I
Thank you.
it wa
That's another thing is, like, you never know, like, speaking more to what, living life can do for your art is, like, you know, I got into both poetry and wrestling, like, because of working on the film, so it was this kind of, like, this, one kinda feeds into the other, your art drives you
Yeah.
to research things, and then you develop a love for those things that you wouldn't have because of your art, but then your love for that thing feeds back into the art and can become new art of its own. Like now I write poems and songs, and this is not necessarily directly correlated to the pro wrestling aspect, but it is kind of an extension where like I do a lot of theater now. Like I'm co-running an independent theater company. I love musicals, and I wouldn't have broken into that if it weren't for partly, understanding myself more, which I did in my like years at college, and just living like in New York and the friends that I made, but also that like, researching pro wrestling is like that's all theater too. I'm like, oh, like this is, I love to
yes.
perform, and I think, you know, animation is just like acting through a drawing, and then I realized that I also just like acting like with my body and my voice too, because I voiced in Slam Poet, I voiced in I think all of my film, maybe all of them except for one, but
Yeah, I heard you in Funny Business too. I
yeah,
really
yeah,
like that one too.
that was my junior year film. Yeah, no, I mean I love voice acting as well. That's something I've always loved even before I was, like, comfortable enough with, like, my, like, physicality to, like, do, like, stage acting. I always loved, to voice act, and that's, something again that those Pixar DVDs showed me that is such a critical component of animation, but is also, again, like Buzz and Woody don't just talk, like, someone has to talk for them. Like, that's a job that you can do.
Yeah,
Like
Mhm.
they're not just magic puppets.
yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. I think we're probably around the same age because Marv and I also spent our senior year of college in
Alright,
quarantine.
yeah. Yeah, COVID university. Yeah, I
Can
was
you
class of
also tell the
2021.
listener what SVA stands for? Some because I didn't know what it was, but I didn't want
Oh,
to
yes,
interrupt.
it's, the School of Visual Arts, in case I didn't say it earlier, which I might
Yeah.
not have.
Yeah, sometimes I say CC, but not everyone knows what Colorado College
Right,
stands for.
right.
But yeah, we spent our senior year, we were allowed to stay with special permission on campus. So Marv,
Mm,
my partner Harrison, and I all lived together, but in quarantine. So it was like together, but it was, I don't know if Marv if you ever
yeah,
got sick of us, but it was um this is a weird time. And we all worked on our thesis that year.
yeah.
And it's hard because it's not what you thought it'd be at all.
Yeah, and there was a lot of grappling with that, but then, I mean, it seems kind of, in tune with the title of your podcast, that finding alternate routes to doing things is. And I was thinking about this too, because I've had a very, during college and before and also after, I've had what I feel is an abnormal path. But I also feel like given the climate of things in just the shape of the industry, I feel like abnormal is gonna become normal. And I also think that's, like, okay. I mean, I think obviously there are, things about the industry that I hope will change for the better, but I also think that, like, it will hopefully lead to, like, an embracing of, like, a multitude of, like, pathways and accessibility. Because I think there's this, like, mythologized, like, you're gonna go to school, you're gonna make your film, and then Mr. Disney's gonna look at it and he's gonna go, "Oh, you're hired," and you're gonna go and make Nemo 3, Geppetto's Revenge, and it's gonna be great, and you're gonna make lots of money, and you're gonna get a big mansion in the Hollywood Hills, and then you're gonna retire and freeze your head, and that's what's gonna happen to you, kid, if
Well,
you're a man, you're
from
white,
your
and
words
you know?
to my future, I guess.
Yeah, and that's such a, like, I don't know. I think that you're probably seeing a exponentially increasing number of people who are perfectly successful and happy, whose lives do not look like that at all. And I think it's okay. I think
Yeah,
we can embrace that.
absolutely. So are you actively working now in the animation industry? Or are you, like you mentioned, working in theater?
Yeah, I
What are
mean,
you doing now?
I'm just like working, like, I feel very, like, in Clark Kent mode where it's like I'm doing, like, regular day jobs. I'm like, I'm just a mild-mannered, like, just service worker, but by night, I am a weird artist, and that,
For a
always
lot of
looking for
people.
always looking for opportunities to, like, make that, like, you know, income, obviously, but, I also think again, I think we have to, like, accept and embrace the fact that it's like, "Hey, like, a lot of people, like, aren't doing this 9 to 5, currently, like, or it's an on and off thing. I mean, that's kind of been, like, my frustration is, like, that, these jobs are project-based usually. You're working, like, I don't know, a couple months at a time, and then you're like, "Ah, looking for work again," and it's like, I'm that doesn't that's hard. That's hard. That's,
Not
very
sustainable.
hard to sustain. Yeah, yes. Yeah. So I think, you know, I'm not ashamed to say it's like, no, I do not currently have an active, like, industry job. I think that's okay. I'm also still constantly using, like, what I've learned, and I'm, working on this, at the time of this recording, we're almost done. At the time that this releases, it might be out already. But me and a bunch of other artists, I led them all, with my friend Knack, who also went to SVA for cartooning, Knack Whittle. We are co-leading this big zine all about my favorite movie, which is not animated, but it feels very cartoonish. It's called Phantom of the Paradise. Please, I'm gonna spread the good word to all your listeners. It's this incredible 70s, like, rock horror. comedy musical thing that is adapting Phantom of the Opera as like a rock opera with elements of like the Faust legend dealing with the devil and all this sort of stuff. And it's just as
Wow.
many like classical literature poured in a blender. And we all, so it's turning 50 this year. It came out in 1974, and we all made this big zine about it. And I got to help lead this amazing project for all these amazing artists. And we're gonna do the after the cost of production, we're gonna raise money for charities. Specifically, I think we're looking at like a music based one, fittingly with the theme. But it's I'm finding these ways to use it in ways that I think are positive. And I'm always like, friend wants a commission, I'm like, yeah, I'll do a commission, here and there. That's always good to have in your pocket. And I don't know. It's also like I feel like so many of these people, because like I'm 25, and I feel like a lot of the people, having these kinds of crises are in a similar age range. But it's also like you're 25. Like why like you don't have to figure this out right now. It's also okay if you're significantly older and don't have it figured out, because you can like figure anything out at any point. Um, the idea that there are specific milestones that you must reach or else is fake. Um, and I don't really know how else to put that.
Yeah.
That's so fair.
Yeah. Snaps. Snaps.
Thank you, thank you,
Snaps
thank
to
you for
that.
the snaps. Thank you for the snaps.
Yeah. I guess we're all 25 in this room. I don't know if that makes this listeners feel young or old, but
If it makes you feel any better, you put us all together and we're just one 75-year-old podcaster. So
so true.
you can feel pretty young there.
I was gonna say 100, but that's because I'm bad at math.
Oh, I mean,
Thank you for correcting
look,
me.
I was in AP calculus in high school, and then I went to art school, and that's gone. It's gone. Like I cannot access it if I tried. Like I really couldn't. I don't know what a function is. Like I really don't.
Me neither. I was a theater and film major, so like
Nice, nice,
literally
nice.
no math. Can't
Yeah.
do it anymore. I'm
Yeah.
forgetting my multiplication
I mean, I have
table.
like I got some sort of like trophy at graduation for like
Nice.
doing well in AP calculus. And I'm like, that's just I need to display it somewhere very prominent, because it so clashes with the person that I currently am. It's like,
I think
how?
it fits in with you perfectly. You
Yeah.
should be
Thank
proud.
you. Thank you.
Was
I
good at
have
math.
I have a similar story where like I was on the mathletes team. Also
Mm,
did calculus, was like
yeah.
honors and everything.
Yeah.
And I studied philosophy, and now
Oh,
I can
wow.
only like I cannot I tried to do the Pythagorean theorem like a couple of days ago, like, oh, you can just do
Yeah.
the A, B, C, and I was
Yeah.
just like, how do you do a square?
Oh, no.
How do you square a number?
Oh,
It was
no.
so embarrassing.
I hope no
Yeah.
mathematicians hear this. They're
But
probably like laughing at
doesn't it
us.
take the pressure off though, in a way? Like you feel like, because you guess what though? You didn't know the Pythagorean theorem, and the world kept turning. Like like it's fine.
Yeah.
Like
You hear that, kids? You don't need to learn math. You're gonna be fine.
And
yeah,
you know what? The calendar on my phone already has a tip function, so I don't even need to I don't even
also
just need to
true.
know that.
Don't even need to know 20%,
Yep.
which is customary, by the way.
Yep.
I really have some not serious questions for you, Ella, about your
Oh,
catalog.
I'll have some very not serious answers.
So you're a podcaster.
Yes,
You have two podcasts.
I have two. Yes.
I would you tell the listeners the names of them?
Yes. One of my podcasts is called Mystery Shack Look Back, that I co-host with my dear friends Charlie Marlowe and Shelby Sessler, and that is essentially a time capsule slash like book club watch along podcast for Gravity Falls, where we go through every episode, including all the kind of supplemental materials and books and games and such, and we uh, go through it sometimes with guests who haven't seen the show, so we're getting like their fresh reactions. And we're doing it without any spoilers, or at least we did it without any spoilers, um, so that if you're new to the show, you can listen along. And we also the other half of it is that not only do we discuss the show, we also discuss the fandom and what the original fandom was like at the time that the show was airing, because it was such a unique community that built up over time with solving all the mysteries of that show. Um,
Right.
and I'm very proud and honestly flabbergasted to say that we've had several guests who've worked on the show, including director on the show, Rob Renzetti, who also created My Life as a Teenage Robot. We had
Awesome.
Mike Rianda, who also directed The Mitchells versus the Machines. We had Jason Ritter, the voice of Dipper, and we've had Alex Hirsch, the creator of the show. We've actually gotten him on once 2 years ago, and then we recently got him back to talk about the new Book of Bill that came out recently. That episode is going to be out at some point in the near future. It might be out by the time of this recording, but feel free to check out Mystery Shack Look Back wherever you get your podcasts for that very new episode. It's largely, I think, we're done with the show, unless as more Gravity Falls content trickles out whenever it does. We'll be there to cover it. But we started that in 2021, and we ended it commemorating the 10th anniversary of the show in 2022. But we still do the occasional return to that. The other podcast that I have, which is definitely less research intensive, intentionally so. I co-host it with my good friend Hope Lichtner. It's called The Matrix Reclamations, and it is all about the Matrix film franchise, specifically talking about it from the lens of us as trans femme people, talking about a film made by trans women, or a film franchise made by trans women, specifically like partly before they came out, partly after they came out, and talking all about, because it's a franchise that has been kind of co-opted and misinterpreted as like, what is this all really about? And some real some real right-wing interpretations of the films that we're trying to sort of, like the title suggests, reclaim and take that back, and talk about also, like with Mystery Shack Look Back, all the supplemental stuff that informs it as well, like the Animatrix, which is all those animated anthology little short films, and all the video games and all these things. And again, we're definitely on a much more low pressure kind of schedule release wise with that. Hope and I will text each other like, we should probably record another sometime. Like, yeah, we will. So feel free to check that out as well wherever you get your fine podcasts.
Yeah.
That was an elevator pitch if the elevator got stuck.
They're both like amazing concepts, and Marv and I both listened to. I mean, it was really funny. I came in and I was like, "Marv, did you listen to any of Ella's podcasts? They both sound so cool." I listened to the Let It Shine episode on the Gravity Falls one.
Thank you. Thank you. I thank you for listening to the Let It Shine episode. Look, we always that's the energy that I try to bring to podcasts, is where like there are episodes where one day we'll do an episode about Let It Shine, the Disney Channel original movie that premiered just before Gravity Falls premiered. And then we're like, okay, but we'll actually do it, right? Like, we have to do it.
You have to do it legally.
I love committing to the bit is very, very important to me.
So
It
important.
is like a priority.
Well, I listened to that one, and Marv was like, "What's Let It Shine?" And I was like, "This is crazy." And then Marv said they listened to the Matrix podcast, and it made perfect sense.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like me, ooh, it's about like trans femme understandings of the Matrix film, and like understanding of like this film through like a queer lens, and that's like so me. And Melissa is so Gravity Falls.
Yeah. And you're like, let's analyze this, academically from a sociological standpoint. And Melissa's like, let's watch a Disney Channel movie.
Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, that's perfect. I didn't have time today to listen to all the Gravity Falls episodes, so I was like, what's a perfect bite? and I saw the Let It Shine episode, and I was like, "That's a perfect bite."
Amazing. I love that because I feel like the episodes that we're proudest of, I would say, are, like, the ones where we did have, like, those big guests on, but that is so, like, I appreciate that, I appreciate that you went for one. Like I said, I love kinda championing things that would otherwise get overlooked, whether that's, people or characters or films. No, I'm very chuffed that you chose that. That means a
I
lot,
loved it.
and
It made
I
me
will
wish
tell
that
the
you
other hosts as well as the other people who were on that episode that was the
please
one.
do. I loved listening to it. It really took me back. I was so I was like, "You all need to start a podcast just about Disney Channel original films."
Oh,
Because when you
I'm
did the
sure. I
bit
mean,
going back and forth naming them, I was like, "Do every single one." I would listen to
yes.
every episode.
Had you watched Let It Shine before?
Probably once, like, it was
Yeah,
on, and I was, like,
yeah.
waiting to watch literally anything else, and I was like, "Well, this is
Probably
on.
Gravity Falls. Yeah, yeah.
I guess I'm watching Let It Shine."
Yeah, because
Ugh,
every ad before Gravity Falls came out, it was like, "The Gravity Falls premiering right after the Disney Channel original movie Let It Shine." I'm like, "I guess I have to care about this now too."
so classic 2012 Disney Channel
2012, yeah. And you
or
don't get
Marvel
that
just
anymore because everything is so bisected with streaming that it's like nothing airs
yeah.
after anything?
I miss the intersectionals so much.
Yeah.
The interstitials, like, let's talk about that let's
Let's
Yeah,
talk about
pass
the
the plate,
ribbons.
guys. Let's pass the plate.
I miss them. I also wanted to ask, do you watch Abbott Elementary and also feel old? Because when you mentioned that the lead of that is Tyler James
Oh,
Williams,
yes,
and I was
yeah,
like,
yes, I do, yeah.
"Oh,
No, I do. Well, I
stop."
watch it and also feel old because, like, granted, it takes place in the city, and I was, again, more in the outskirts, but, like, that's the Philadelphia school district. That was the school district I attended, and I recognize a lot of, like, what they do and how they interact and kind of the look of everything, and yeah, I feel old.
That's crazy. That's
Like,
kinda cool,
I'm
though.
sure in one of my classrooms there is a big Eagles rug, that was I didn't have any
Cute.
teachers as cool as they did, though.
Yeah, fantasy. What was your favorite part of the Matrix podcast, Marv?
I
What was
Which
the
really
episode did you just listen to the first one, or
I just listened to the first one, yeah.
yeah, and that's kind of I think that's just us kinda giving our overview of
Yeah,
yeah, which is a good, summary, I guess, yeah.
yeah. And I feel like it's one of those things that I wish I was able to, like, talk about with, like I have this very specific memory of being in my ancient to early modern philosophy class, and my
Oh my god, yeah, I didn't
professor
even make that connection. I was like, yeah, the philosophy person would totally glom onto the Matrix stuff. Yeah, wow. Go on, yes.
and we were watching the movie. I think actually I missed that day, but I remember talking to the professor after and just being like, "Oh yeah, like my understanding of it feels a little different because like there's philosophy of these things that we're talking about and like what's his name? Robert Nozick and the experience machine. And that's like really what we're talking about in the class. But I was like, but have you ever thought about like what it's like to come into being and recognize and like not recognize yourself? and
Yeah,
and then talking about like the Wachowskis, and, like, the
right.
professor was just, like, not making these connections, and I was just like, what are you what are you
And, like,
missing
yeah,
that I"
you can do Death of the Author all you want, but I don't think you can divorce, like, who the Wachowskis are from
Yeah,
that film. I think it's, like, at best, it's, like, naive, at worst, it's, like, irresponsible or even
exactly.
disrespectful. Yeah. Like, yes, Death of the Author, but I don't know how you engage with a work without, like, acknowledging its creator, like, not even knowing who its creators are, like, just being like, this is a movie that I guess appeared one day in the world,
Yeah,
which again is something that I understood at like 4 with watching the Pixar stuff and being like, "Oh, people made this." Like,
right.
yeah.
And I think that's what I'm sort of coming to learn, like, having Melissa in my life and just, like, understanding the creative process more when it comes to, like, film and television and all that, like,
Yeah.
I'm an enjoyer of content. I don't know a lot of people who are creators of content until
Right.
this moment in my life, and I feel like most people and I feel like that speaks to a lot of people's experience, like, not even knowing where it's coming from, but because I know Melissa, I just think about things more.
'Cause yeah, and I've almost had the opposite experience because 'cause I've almost exclusively been surrounded with, like, people who create things, and then when I meet someone who doesn't necessarily know, it's like I feel like I'm giving, like, the birds and the bees. I'm like, "Well, you see, when an animator, really loves a story, well, oh, geez, not prepared for this conversation."
I love that analogy. I
Yeah.
might borrow that from time to
Thank you.
time.
Yeah, please. But yeah, I'm glad that can resonated with you feeling, isolated in that class, but that you felt, connected with someone else who felt the same way. It's also just it's so funny to me how people look at something like The Matrix and go like, "Yeah, I think it's about like how like wokeism is like imprisoning us, and we have to like break free of like the machine." Like I'm like, how how are you getting that from this? I'm very curious, and there's a lot to be
We
said.
gotta red pill all of
Yeah,
the
red pill. Yeah, I mean that's the biggest example, right? Is that red pill became like synonymous with this manosphere garbage,
Yeah.
and I don't understand it because, and I think we get into it a lot in the podcast, but I think that there's a certain like the Matrix to me, at least the first film, is specifically like it's not just like trans art or queer art, but it's like closeted trans art that they were making when they weren't out, and so I think as a consequence, it's it's vague. I don't think that's a problem with it, but I can see how that maybe led to people willfully interpreting it and using it for their own nefariousness. But I also think that the work of someone who is closeted is just as queer as the work of someone who's out. I don't think it discounts it, and I'm not going to blame someone for not outing themselves in the 1990s.
Mm. That's really beautiful way of putting
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
As you can tell, we're already huge fans of your work.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm huge fans of yours too.
I You're also just really funny, and I was watching
Thank
your
you.
Beetlejuice animatic, and
Oh,
as
yeah,
a
yeah.
musical fan, like,
Yeah,
I
no, I
loved
mean, that's one of
seeing
my
it.
favorite.
You have a, like, great sense of timing and
Thank you.
humor, which I think is hard, especially when doing musical sequences. Can you talk about, like, how you figured out how to bring your charming personality and great sense of humor onto the page, and, like, did that
Mhm.
come in your schooling or just over the many years
Yeah,
from 7 years old to now?
yeah, I mean, I
How did
guess,
you put it together?
yeah, some of that is from, like, the childhood stuff, I guess, that was just sort of the stuff I was feeling my way through, but that's all very raw. And then I think the first 2-ish years of college, and again, I'm parroting some of the stuff from my SVA video, so I can send you a link there, and you can link it, in the description or whatever, so people can sort of, see all those points that I might have phrased better in that one. But that the first 2 years of college were, like, kind of, like, refining that rawness into something, like, structured, but there was, like, probably too much structure, and I felt like I didn't really know what I was doing or that I wasn't really making any progress, and then something kinda clicked in the 3rd year, where I realized, like, "Oh, I can, like, kind of, like, marry these 2 things, all this rigor that has been drilled into me with varying levels of success and mostly a lot of tears. Um, you know, self-inflicted, I should say, like a lot of just lack of self-esteem, but a discouragement. But marrying that to that raw energy and finding my own way to reconcile them. And like funny business is a good example, like my junior year film, because I realized, I can do this sort of limeless art style and this these things within the program Toon Boom that I feel like aren't like necessarily intuitive or even recommended, but it worked for me, so I kind of went with that. And it came out looking nice, so I followed that. And I guess to your point about like keeping that energy is just sort of like, I don't know, not holding myself to too like rigorous of a like structural standard. Where like if something is a little rough, I'm like, I'll work with that. I'll refine it later if I need to, but I'm not gonna. I mean, it's a common expression, but it's like finished, not perfect is a big like driver for me where, you know, I can't let the perfectionism stop me from actually producing something because I might, I look at a career like Richard Williams, who is, of course, a legendary animator, but also kind of infamously like spent like half his life perfecting one film. And, I just can't get into that mindset. I can like respect it, at least when you're not like overworking others, but I don't pretend to understand it, because I think I would rather, finish the thing and learn and then continue to the next thing. And there's always going to be something in that earlier thing that I can still be proud of, I would think.
Well, I think we've taken up a lot of your time. We could probably talk to you for another hour.
Oh,
Just
and I'd be
going
happy to. I would be happy to.
but I think that's we'll let you go, and
It
is
really
there
has been a major pleasure to be here, I must say.
is there anything you'd like to plug for the listeners? We've already plugged your 2 podcasts.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've I've plugged so many things. I plugged the podcast, that Phantom of the Paradise zine I mentioned earlier. You can find more info about that at potpzine.card, which is CARRD, like a pirate, I guess. Card.co. And that's sort of our homepage for all of that stuff. The theater company that I'm now co-running is called Pretzel Theater Company. They're based mainly in the Manayunk Roxborough area of Philly, so that's like Northwest Philadelphia. And yeah, we are an all ages, inclusive of all levels of experience. We're trying to really just open the accessibility of like the theater space because it can feel very insular. And I mean, that was a roadblock for me to get into it on top of other deeper self-related things that I don't have time to get into. But we're trying to sort of take steps to remedy it. And again, I think it's just for me, it's another like way of expressing myself, whether it's through a drawing or through a body or through a song. It's you can find us at Pretzel Theater Co. That's theater with an ER, not an RE. And then the CO on Instagram. And I believe we're also on Facebook as well. So
We'll put this all in the show notes so people can find you as well
thank you so
for the
much. And
theater.
my website for my general comings and goings, which I probably should update because there's been a lot of new things. But
Yeah.
that's Ella Cesari, ELLACESARI .weebly.com. And yeah, that's where you can find all my other funny things. I have a Bandcamp, which is also my name, where I have various little songs. And yeah, there's a lot that I do. I
She's a
proud.
busy lady. She's a busy lady.
Yeah, and I'm proud to consider myself kind of like a polymath in that way, where like it was very freeing to, I love animation. It was my first love. It'll always be like the thing that is the thing I wanted to do since I was a kid, and that'll always have a very special place in my heart. But I'm also learning to love the fact that I can love multiple things and can do multiple different things, and maybe even pursue a career in something else. Like, I don't know if this will be the thing that I do 20 years from now as the full-time money thing. Maybe it'll be something else. And I think that's, again, like accepting that openness, I think is really important, especially, with things the way they are now. I think flexibility is just an important skill. That's the takeaway I would want people to have.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ella.
Yes,
We loved
thank
having
you.
you. I hope we
I
can stay
love
in
being here.
touch.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Yay!
Thank you for listening to our interview with Ella. She was so cool. This was our first interview with not one of my coworkers and or existing friends. It was really cool to meet her and learn about her experience. I hope you had fun, Marv.
I had a lot of fun. Definitely a cool and interesting person to meet.
Are you gonna go and listen to all of the Matrix podcasts?
I am queued up right now. Are you gonna watch The Phantom of the Paradise?
We should definitely watch that movie. It speaks to both of our interests in very specific ways.
Yes.
Movie night. Like Phantom of the Opera, but retold. Any way you could retell Phantom of the Opera is an immediate upgrade.
What is it? Love Never Loses or whatever?
Love Never Dies.
Yeah.
This is the sequel, and I think it's trash only because they do Raoul dirty. I don't know how the populace feels about Raoul, but I like him. And I think they do him so dirty in the sequel. They make him a drunk, and it just doesn't make sense. Whatever.
Yeah.
That's
And
my soapbox.
also, Coney Island?
Yeah, why do they go to Coney Island? None of it makes sense. Ugh. But yeah, we'll have to watch that and talk about it on or off the air. Report back. Do you have a favorite Disney Channel original movie?
I don't know. I don't think I've seen that many. What is it? 13th Year, the one where he turns into a mermaid? That one sticks with me.
Oh, interesting choice. I feel like I avoided that one. Like it would come on and I'd be like, no, I don't want to watch that. I'm going to Cartoon Network or something.
Oh, sorry.
It's fine. Just remember like not liking that one. I was basic. I like Lemonade Mouth. They did singing in that one.
It's true. Camp Rock?
Camp Rock. Yeah, I like Camp Rock. I distinctly not liked High School Musical because everybody liked it and I was edgy. But now I'm a grown adult and I'm like, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's got some good points, you know. We're all in it together.
Pop to the top.
Pop to the top.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty good. I was just an obnoxious teen, preteen. All right, Marv, let's say bye to our guests. Not our guests, to each other, to the listeners.
To the listeners.
Thank you for listening. Like, comment, subscribe on Apple. I hear that's helpful for getting our podcast up in the ratings and the ranking. But yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll be back soon with another episode. And as we say every week, as you all know, there's not
one
right
way
to recreate the extras from A Bug's Life in the after the credits scenes.
There's not one way to recreate the DVD extras on the Bug's Life.
There's not one right way to make a mixed drink.
So true. That was a good one.
Thank you. I just thought of that one. I thought we could maybe just spitball things we remembered.
There's not one right way to cure loneliness.
There's not one right way to discuss the Matrix.
There's not one right way to discover animation.
There's not one right way to get through a global pandemic. Yeah.
This episode has been edited, produced, written by Melissa Manuel and Marv from Yaga. Thank you so much for joining us.
Why do you say written by? It makes it sound like we have a script. We don't have a script. We're unscripted. Thanks for listening. Bye.